What's up YouTube, and welcome to my pickups video for the month of April 2025. Also known as the month that I really wasn't home very much. I did a lot of travel this month. Started off the month with my birthday weekend and visited San Diego, California, hit some concerts up out there and had a good time. And then came back, worked for a few days, and then immediately left for another vacation and went to my classic BMW group trip, which I go to every year. And this year it was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which we've been to before there for that trip, but sometimes we rotate to other cities. So spent a few days in Chattanooga, and then came back, worked for a few more days, and then went to a game con in the middle of Missouri, my home state, the Como Game Con, or Como Retro Con, whatever it's called, in Columbia, Missouri, right in the center of Missouri, and so that was fun. And then pretty much actually stayed home the rest of the month, but also found some other stuff online throughout the month as well. So quite a bit to show actually this month, and really all over the place as far as stuff I found. So let's not waste any more time and jump right in. First thing I got was a pre-order from Limited Run that I've been waiting for some time. This one is the Castlevania Dominus collection, which is a collection of the 3 DS, Nintendo DS titles that they made in the Castlevania series. And really not one of the ones I was super excited about. I have, I think, all the other Castlevania compilations for PS4 and PS5. But this is the one that I have the 3DS games, but I really have played them very little. And so actually now that I have this on TV, I'm playing them a little bit more. And it's kind of interesting some of the things they did to adapt them for the touchscreen. You actually use the touchpad on the PS5 pad to do some of the controls with some of the games. So it actually works okay, and I think it'd be neat if we got some other Nintendo DS stuff on PlayStation systems, but I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen. The other thing that's neat about this pack, and I didn't even remember seeing this whenever I pre-ordered it, but it does have the classic Castlevania adjacent game Haunted Castle, the arcade game, included as a free bonus. And what I think is even better than that is it has a remastered, reworked version of it also included on the disc. And that's actually pretty fun, considering the original arcade game is very clunky, although it looks cool. So neat to play that too. I'd like to put some more time into this, but I thought it was actually a pretty good pack and better than I was expecting. So again, kind of curious what your favorite of the 3 DS games are. You can put that in the comments. So far I've really been playing Order of Ecclesia the most, but obviously have some time to dig into the other two as well. So nice pack, and happy that finally showed up. Next thing I got was from the Columbia Game Con. It was actually the only game I bought there, which was very weird, to go to a con and only find one thing. But what was neat about this is I didn't even know this game existed, and I saw it on the merchant's booth, and I thought, that actually looks like kind of a cool cover. Let me see what this is all about. And it turns out it's a neat compilation of retro-style games for the DS, but it only came out in Japan. It's called the GG Series Collection Plus, I believe is the full title on this. Basically, the gimmick is the games are arranged by genre of type of retro games. So you have like some puzzle games, some action games, some racing and sports games, and I think there might be like one other genre represented as well. You only get a few of them to start out with, and then you have to earn in-game credits by playing good at them or unlocking achievements that actually earns you more credit to buy more games. So kind of addictive in that sense. The problem is some of those starter games, some of them are actually pretty good. There's one of the puzzle games that was like extremely addictive. But then some of the other ones are so lousy, like you really don't even want to play them to earn the points. But kind of neat. It's very much like the Game Center CX or Retro Game Challenge that we did get here. Maybe a little bit less polished, but also really the same theme and just some other different kinds of games. So neat collection. It actually goes for quite a bit of money on eBay, and that's why I was surprised. Like I didn't even know this existed. But definitely worth tracking down if you like that type of thing, which I think I do. What I wish, since this was used, I was hoping that like the prior owner would have unlocked a lot of the games, but I think they must have got tired of it really quick because there was hardly anything on the save file that was on the game. So I went ahead and started a new one and just kind of enjoying this one from scratch. But nice surprise. I thought I knew the DS library, domestic and foreign, pretty well, but this was one that slipped under my radar. So very cool to find that game. One of the games I got while I was out in San Diego was at one of the game stores there. This is an upgrade for my TurboGrafx collection. This is Tricky Kick. Kind of an average action puzzle game for the system. It was one of the earlier titles. I had this one in my collection, but it was, I had the manual and I had the Hue card, but I was missing the tray with the original spine and label for Tricky Kick and everything, and that bugged me on the shelf. So decided to upgrade to a complete copy outside of the outside cardboard box. It doesn't have that. and I'll just sell off my other copy. It's a little bit less complete than this. So nice to get something for the TurboGrafx, which I've been pretty slow on lately, and I definitely like collecting for that system. The next one, though, I was looking for a very long time for my Neo Geo CD, and that's the original Sengoku. Very cool beat 'em up. This was an arcade game on the Neo Geo MVS as well, of course, and really whacked out beat 'em up that has a mix of like historical Japan themes as well as like future Japan themes, and the game levels kind of bounce between the two settings multiple times per level depending on how you play. So it's a very weird and unsettling experience, but somehow it works really well. The game is a lot of fun. Sengoku, the arcade game, came out I think in 91, and then this is one of the original release games on the Neo Geo CD that didn't come out till like 94 or 95. And what I've noticed with some of those older Neo Geo titles that were brought to Neo CD is they didn't seem like they printed that many. So why I bring that up is there's also a Sengoku 2 for Neo Geo CD and also the arcade, and that game seems to be way more common than this one is. So this one actually gave me quite a bit of a fit to find it at a good price. And what was interesting is I found this on eBay. I think I found an auction that was ending in the middle of the day my time, but it actually was located in Israel. And in all my years of game buying, I've never bought a game from Israel, so it was interesting. The seller did not send it with any tracking whatsoever, and it took almost a month to get here, so it was a little bit unsettling to know if I was even going to get my game. But I did. The seller had a good reputation, and it came in great condition. So very happy to get this. I played this a lot, actually. I think I beat it one night while I was just sitting there and just really unwinding, enjoying this game. So can highly recommend it, and I actually like it a little bit better than Sengoku 2. There was a Sengoku 3 also, which came out for the arcade and AES, but unfortunately it didn't make it to the CD. It was just a little bit too late of a release. So would like to have that one somehow on Neo CD, but doesn't exist as of now. Another weird find I got in California, another one of the San Diego game stores, was not necessarily something I was looking for, but I couldn't pass it up, and that is a complete-in-box Exodus for the Sega Genesis. And you're thinking, this looks like a weird Sega Genesis game, and it is. This is one of the unlicensed Bible games for the Genesis, one of 4 that made it to the system. It's the same publisher, Wisdom Tree, that also put these games out on the NES as well as the Game Boy. Not all the ones that made it to NES made it to the Genesis, only 4 of the 7 that we got on the NES, and this was one of them. But very creative box art, and neat to have another one of these for the Genesis. I think now I have 3 of the 4. They are very difficult to find these complete on the Genesis, I think mainly because they're in these paper boxes, and you know they just weren't as durable as the Genesis clamshells that we got on the licensed games. So happy to add that to the collection. Got a great price on this and couldn't pass it up, even though it wasn't necessarily something I was looking for. Another thing I found out in California, this was really strange. I was driving out into like a more rural area that I'd never been to, and decided to pop up Google and see if there were any game stores in the area, and lo and behold, there was. And it was really strange. Like, Google was routing me this way, and it was going through all these neighborhoods and subdivisions, and then it told me to turn into a subdivision, and I'm like, what on earth is going on here? And it turned out this game store is currently operating out of somebody's garage in the middle of a neighborhood. And it's a combination barbershop and video game store, and it's a pretty permanent fixture. The garage door is gone, and it's just like a clear panel that replaced the garage door, and with a door on it. So I don't know how well that goes over with the neighbors. It doesn't really seem fully legal to me, but if that's what works for them and they're cool with that, then I guess it's fine. Very nice owner of the store. Unfortunately, I don't remember the name of it off the top of my head. But I did find one thing. I wasn't really looking for this, but it was the Namco Museum Virtual Arcade for the Xbox 360. And this is a 360 exclusive. This does not exist on PS3 or Wii or anything like that. And it has some of the online games, as well as obviously the typical Namco Museum stuff that you got on most of these. I remembered I was missing this in my collection. It's the type of thing I typically would have bought when it released, but for some reason this one never got cheap back in the day. Even GameStop always wanted like 30 or 35 bucks for this used. And so I found this for like, I don't know, 10 bucks or something in the garage and decided to go for it. So haven't popped this in yet. I haven't even fired up my 360 in a long time, but would like to check this out because I know it has a enhanced Mr. Driller that's been modernized for at least the time that this got released. So you can let me know if you played this one, if it's any good, but typically the type of thing I like, so hopefully there'll be some good stuff on there. Let's talk about a weird accessory I also found in California. This was not something I was looking for, but happy to find. So whenever I got my Sega Game Gear fully recapped and replaced with a modern screen about a year ago, I noticed that my Game Gear converter, which was a third-party one that I think was by the company Docs, no longer worked. And I don't know if it's just the converter broke or it had something to do with it with just being no longer compatible with all the mods I did to the system. But what I found in this California game store was another version of the Sega Game Gear converter. And when I say converter, what it actually does is it lets you play Sega Master System games on your Sega Game Gear, which are actually very similar hardware. And so it's really just acting as like a pass-through to work with the Sega Game Gear. And so I found another one of those, a different brand. This is also vintage. It's not like a new one or anything like that. And it's by the company Newbie, which made a lot of other dubious accessories of the era. But it's this very strange T-shape, and it's very different than the other one that kind of like snaps onto the back of the Sega Game Gear. So first I had to figure out how to even use this thing, and it has a very bizarre way of connecting to the Game Gear, so I'll demo it here for you. Let me pop this into place. But what is great is it actually works fine with my modded system, so maybe it's just possible my other converter just happened to die on me. So this is what it looks like when you have your game ready to go. And so basically you pop the front of the label in there face down and facing you, and it almost creates like a shield from the sun, I guess, for your screen. You know, the original Game Gear screen wasn't very visible, so I don't know if that'll pop up for us here, but like that's really what it'll look like while you're playing it. Which is very strange, but it works and it seems fine. So I think I will start using this. There are some games on the Game Gear that are on the Master System that are kind of neat to play on the Game Gear that didn't necessarily get Game Gear versions. A lot of them did, but some of them did not. So very cool. Just kind of expand your library for the Game Gear, which now that I have a nice modded system, I'm starting to play more than ever. So I think that's kind of cool just to unlock some of that. But I can recommend the Newbie converter for Master System games on the Game Gear. It actually works really well. Let's talk about some NES stuff. So this was a kind of strange month that I kept finding like NES box upgrades, which wasn't necessarily something I'm going for a complete set of. And one of these was another unique part of my San Diego excursion is I had like one day off in between the two concerts that I was going out there for, and I was trying to figure out what else I wanted to do. And I realized I recently got my passport, and Tijuana is just a footsteps away. Like, you can literally walk across the border. So I did. I took my first trip outside of the United States by walking over the border into Tijuana, Mexico. And of course, what do you do when you go into Tijuana, Mexico? Other than have some wonderful food, is you go game hunting. And so, luckily I did a little research before just to see what else was out there. And found out that the dedicated game stores were too far to walk to, but there was like this strange, just like technology flea market type place that was multiple stories. And I said, well, there might be something in there. I'll go check that out. And it turned out it paid off because there was a lot of stuff in this building. It had about 3 or 4 floors. There was like a whole area with like just modern cell phones and cell phone accessories and modern consoles like PS5s and Switches. There was other electronics, TVs. There was a section on one of the floors that even had some like Japanese candy cabinets playing some bootleg arcade games in them, which I thought was interesting. And then I found one section kind of like tucked to the back behind a food court was like all retro games booths, and they were all individual vendors selling retro games and all the booths. And I was like, well, this is like a gold mine. This didn't even show up on Google that this existed. So wandered through a bunch of those, just a lot of good stuff, but it wasn't really things that I was looking for. And then I made the mistake, I didn't exchange any money into pesos before I went over the border, and so it just kind of made it hard to like do the calculation in my head, and my phone wasn't working because I didn't have service in there, so I was like, well, is this a deal? Is it not a deal? I don't even know. But I did find a vendor that was willing to take my American cash, and so we made a deal on a very nice clean copy of Rollerball for the NES, which is a neat pinball game by HAL Labs that I didn't have the box for, so I figured might as well, and I'll just get rid of my carton manual that I had for it already. But I really just wanted to say I had something that I bought retro game related from Mexico, so now I can check that box, and I was able to bring this across with me through all the customs checks and all that kind of stuff, and it made it through unscathed. So kind of a fun experience. I don't know if I would go back anytime soon, but it was good to just check the box and have that experience to get myself out of the country for the first time. So neat to do that, and I guess just letting people know there are retro games in Tijuana, and bring pesos because you might find some deals. Other stuff I found, NES box related, is when I was in Colombia for the GameCon, I went to one of the game stores out there and found a complete copy of Touchdown Fever for NES at a good price. Pretty uncommon football game by SNK, actually, of all people, and you just don't really see This one, or really don't hear too much about it. Also was obviously an arcade game pre-Neo Geo, but, you know, they did make an NES version, and I guess a few of them got out there, but nice to find that. And then the other two NES box upgrades I got were part of the Tennessee trip. And so we were out on our scenic drive that we do one day with our classic car group. And on the way back, I was like, well, let's see if there's any video game stores out here. And lo and behold, one of our stops was at a lunch place. And right around the corner in the middle of nowhere town in Tennessee, there was a retro game store. And so I found a copy of Conflict for the NES, complete in the box. These were like especially mint. This had the map, the manual, all that good stuff. And the guy had told me he just had somebody trade this in along with a whole bunch of other really mint NES complete games. It's just, unfortunately, I had pretty much all the other ones. And I wasn't sure if the condition was like that much better than mine that it was worth buying again. But a lot of classic titles. This was really the one that was the weirdest one. Not really a game that I'm too into. It's more like a war sim type thing. It's very slow paced. And I thought it was interesting that, I don't know if I've ever even seen this box in person before, but like the back of the box doesn't even have any screenshots. They were so confident that you were going to be so taken by the tank on the front that you didn't even care what the game looked like, or they were just hiding that the game wasn't really that interesting and hoping you would buy it anyway. So either way, a strange tactic by Vic Tokai, and not something that you saw too often on NES games of the period, because most of them wanted you to see the pictures and buy the game based on that. So then we left there, and we're heading back to our hotel in Chattanooga, and I found another game store in a very rural part of Tennessee. And they didn't really have a whole lot of stuff in that store, but they did have a nice clean copy of Super Off-Road for the NES Complete, which I verified I didn't have, and always really have had kind of a soft spot for this game, so I was very happy to find this one as well. So yeah, added some nice complete NES games, and they kind of came from all over the place, including other countries this month, so I thought that was cool. I'll show you another strange California find. So one day I was out there, I hit a few thrift stores that were out in the way, and I went to a Savers store out there, which we have those here, but I hardly ever find anything retro game related at a good price. But out there, they must have different standards or pricing or something like that, because I found a really good deal on a PS3 Super Slim system with 2 controllers, all the wires, and all that kind of stuff, and it even had a Vice City disc GTA 5 disc in the drive, whatever. I already have a PS3 Super Slim. You know, this wasn't like critical that I needed this, but I thought about it, and I plugged it in the store, and it turned on and everything like that. The disc spun. It sounded like it was okay. So I decided to take a chance on it because it was a really good price. It was like $40 with this and all the accessories and 2 controllers and all that kind of stuff. So got it home and realized why it was in the thrift store and why I should have actually hooked it up to a TV inside the store. The hard drive was dead. And so did a little research and found out that it actually gave me an opportunity to upgrade the system and put a modern solid-state drive in it, which was very affordable. Now Micro Center sells you a 500 gig solid-state drive for like 20 or 30 bucks in the store. So not a major expense. I got to learn how to fix that and install it. It wasn't a big deal. And then obviously like put the boot, software back, the BIOS and all that stuff back on the system so it would boot, and it's working great now. So what I'm going to do with this is I did have a PS2 Slim in my bedroom just as like kind of a backup DVD player, and I could play PS1 and PS2 games in bed if I wanted to. Well, now I have this, I can play PS1 and PS3 games in bed, and I now have a Blu-ray player in my bedroom, which is an upgrade, I guess. And I can play DVDs, and also it can use wireless controllers, which I couldn't before. So a little bit less clutter for the bedroom. Is just like a extra bonus system that I'm probably not going to use a whole lot. But it was really kind of rewarding just to bring this thing back to life. And so now I have another PS3 Slim with a nice modern hard drive in it. But yeah, you never know. Like I said, things like that I wouldn't find at a Savers here that, out there were cheap and like nobody was really jumping on it or anything. I was just sitting there like it'd been sitting there for a while. So we're getting close to the end. I got a couple magazines as well this month. Both of these came from eBay. I was really disappointed going to the con a couple weeks ago and not finding any magazines. It's like one of my favorite things to buy at cons. There really wasn't a whole lot to pick from. So I think a lot of people are collecting them now, which has kind of dampened my ability to find them in the wild. But I did get one more of the 1996 era Game Informers. This is a cool Crash Bandicoot cover for the original game whenever it first came out. And I'm getting very close to having the full set of all the 90s Game Informers. I think I need 4 more from 1996. For some reason that year is the weak spot. And then once I get those, I'll have the full set. So looking forward to getting those knocked out and finishing this set. And I promise I'll do a video on that whenever I finish that. The other thing I got from eBay was something I just recently learned about online that existed, and it kind of like blew a gasket because I thought I was complete with this like subset, and it turned out I wasn't. So I'm also trying to collect all the Game Fan issues from the 90s, or the whole run, which, you know, basically were from the 90s and early 2000s. But then also all their like sub magazines. And so they had like a sports magazine, and then they had like their tips magazine. So I got all those. I've conquered that. And then I found an issue of Station magazine, I think last year. And it said on the front cover like first issue or premiere issue or something like that. So I thought it was just a one and done because it had a Tomb Raider 2 cover, and there's no other issues I've ever seen any history of or anything like that beyond that issue. Well, it turned out that wasn't the first issue, even though it said first issue or premiere issue. There's a pre-issue to that, which was about a year prior, which is very strange. So this one's like 1997 era, and it's got like a mix of like whatever they considered the 50 best PS1 games to date at that point. But you can tell it was significantly older than the other issue I have. The only theory I have on this one is that this one may not have even gone to newsstands, because on the back it has an ad for the original Dead or Alive with a reference at that it'll be showing at E3. And so it's possible like these were just given away at E3, which was not unprecedented for Game Fan to do such a thing. So now I think I have all the PS1 Station magazines that was a subset of Game Fan in my collection, all 2 of them, but maybe there's more, and maybe I'm going to beat my head against the wall trying to track those down. This one is a little bit different than the other issue. The other one says, like, Game Fan Presents Station, so you wouldn't necessarily know that this was put out by Game Fan, but if you go to the table of contents, it's got, like, all Game Fan addresses and things like that included. So it was almost like they were trying to hide that it was a subsidy of Game Fan that put this out, maybe because some of the writers were different, things like that. But very happy to get this. Like I said, a huge thorn in my side to even know that there was another subset issue that I thought I didn't need that I did need, but happy to have that off the list as well. So thank you for enjoying my exhaustive month of all the different weird stuff I found. It was a pretty good month, I thought, overall. Thank you very much for watching. Please take a moment, like, comment, subscribe, let me know what you think, and I will talk to you soon. Have a great day or night, wherever you are.